Hey YouTube, Untamed here. I did a YouTube short video where I highlighted my top 5 likes of my 2021 Toyota Land Cruiser Heritage Edition. It was a bit of a parody video because I really only focused on my likes and I jokingly plugged 0 dislikes in it. There are some things to dislike about the Land Cruiser here. No vehicle is perfect, let's face it, but really the dislikes that I have for the Land Cruiser are quite small, and it really does feel like I'm splitting hairs with it totally. This is my favorite SUV, and by a long shot. Today's video, I'm going to highlight my top 5 likes and a couple dislikes that I have about the Land Cruiser, a little bit more in detail, so stick with me as we talk through it. Now, my number 1 top like that I have about the 200 Series Land Cruiser Heritage Edition here is the fact that it truly does feel like no other SUV out there. It truly is overbuilt. It is built to last, and man, the second you sit in it and get behind the wheel and drive this thing, you realize that. You know, I'll kind of highlight some details around the vehicle and really kind of emphasize what I believe sets it apart from all the competition, even at the price point. The original MSRP on this particular Heritage Edition back in 2021 was right around $91,000 and some change. That's a lot of money, and even since 2021, I mean, inflation played its toll. I mean, this same vehicle would cost maybe $105,000 plus today in 2026, 2025 dollars, right? So it costs a ton of money, and there is a whole lot of other competition for you to consider at that price point. That's why they weren't wildly popular. People spending that kind of coin on an SUV, they're the type of people probably were aiming at a Porsche Cayenne, perhaps a Mercedes-Benz, BMW X5M, blah, blah, blah. They're looking at those vehicles, right? They're not really looking at the old Toyota here. But the fact that this truly is built to last is a reason to love this forever. Let me show you underneath it. I'll try to do a good job and show you just how robust all the components are down here. Everything, even compared to the 4Runner over there, the 5th generation 4Runner, everything underneath here is just extremely huge and robust by comparison. The sway bars, lower control arms, upper control arms, tie rods, everything, the frame, everything is huge. You can tell that they built it to last. Another clear indicator is when you open the doors. I know I talk about it plenty, but this is your first impression. When you walk up to the Land Cruiser, you open the door here and just feel the heft of it. It is so much heavier compared to this rink-a-dink over here. And I'm not dogging the 5th generation 4Runner. They're two very different price points here, and they both last forever, right? Probably half the weight of the door here. Land Cruiser here, the 200 series anyway, truly was among the very few vehicles in which the technicians that are actually building this vehicle go into building it with the intention of making it last 20 to 25 plus years with minimal headache, minimal maintenance, and minimal repair. It truly is built to last forever. And very few vehicle manufacturers are going to be willing to do that, right? Because if it lasts forever, you're not trading it in every 3 to 5 years. And it ultimately cuts into a vehicle manufacturer's bottom line. They want you buying a new vehicle every few years. But Toyota, they took a different approach. They wanted you to buy this and develop tremendous brand reputation, love this brand, and only buy Toyotas for the rest of your life. And you'll tell your friends, you'll tell your families. That's ultimately what has led to Toyota's success within the US. My number 2 like is what's underneath the hood. If you're familiar with the Land Cruiser here, you know the heart of the beast here is absolutely incredible. Underneath the hood, we have that tried and true, trusty 5.7 liter V8. Let me see if I can do this one hand. There we go. That 5.7 liter V8, a V8, naturally aspirated V8 here. None of that turbocharged nonsense, hybridized nonsense, things that will fail potentially over time, right? They didn't stuff it to the gills with technology. It's not overdone. It's not overcooked, just a giant, brutish V8 engine. Built in Japan, mind you, so that adds to its, I think, overall quality, right? I mean, the fact that it's built by the Japanese, they take tremendous pride in building this Land Cruiser, and it's abundantly clear. I mean, not just the engine, of course, but if you look at the panel gaps all throughout it, everything is so standardized throughout this entire vehicle. You know, nothing is, hugely off by any means, right? Just to the naked eye, everything is just perfect because they take tremendous pride in building it. And it all starts with the heart of the engine here. To my 3rd like, and that is the driving experience. And let me explain. It truly does feel like you're driving a bank vault. I know that's overplayed, overused, that phrase when it comes to driving the 200, but it is probably the best way to describe it. It is so planted, right? There is no weather conditions that are going to deter this or make you lose any level of confidence while driving it. You can drive it through a blizzard. I have. Not this particular one, my previous one, and it handled everything with such grace. Not once did I worry that I was going to lose traction or lose grip. It's a full-time four-wheel drive vehicle. It is phenomenal. So planted, and not to mention it's extremely comfortable too. The seats in here are incredible. They're second to none, really. You get in there and you just feel such a plush seat, and they're the commanding view of the road. You look around, it really is like you're driving in a fishbowl, which is incredible for when you're on and off road, right? You can see everything around you. There's no blind spots in the 200 here, and it just adds to the whole entire driving experience. So number three, the driving experience of the LC200 is second to none. The Land Cruiser here did come spec'd with the third row, and that was pretty important to me. I have 5 little ones at home, so having the space, if I needed to load up the entire family and have them be comfortable for an extended road trip or whatever, I like knowing that we can do that anyway. The Heritage Edition in 2020 only came with the third row delete, for those of you who don't know. So only in 2021 did they introduce it as an option. So not many of these actually came with that third row. So again, me finding this particular one was extremely exciting, not only for the price point, but for having that back there. Now my fourth like is the fact that this is so timeless, right? That side silhouette here screams Land Cruiser. That's just an iconic side profile, right? I love that. Similar to what we have in the 5th generation 4Runner over here, right? You see that side profile, that silhouette, you're like, okay, wow, that's definitely a Toyota 4Runner. And then boom, here we have the Toyota Land Cruiser. I love that. It's such a timeless design, right? In and out, right? Inside of this vehicle, there's not a whole lot of technology in here. There's really very little technology. You have a pretty simplistic and rather dated, if we're being honest, feeling infotainment here. A lot of tactile buttons or buttons that you would use commonly and regularly anyway. This right here, this is a metal finish, so it doesn't feel cheap or plasticky. Nothing in here does. It might look plasticky, but even to the touch here, everything feels extremely premium, and it feels like it's going to last, right? Things aren't going to start falling apart on you. And like I mentioned earlier, these seats are absolutely incredible. They're so soft. You get that unique bronze stitching, unique to the Heritage Edition anyway. But look at the rather simplistic key fob here. Nothing to write home to mom about. Pretty cheap and flimsy, if we're being honest. This part anyway. Your gear selection feels great. All of your off-roading goodies, anything you need. 4 low, 4 high, multi-train selection, blah, blah, blah. Turning assist, everything is right there. I love the fact that it has, let me hop in here, the analog gauges too. Foot on the brake, push to start. I love that. A nice high-resolution center stack. That looks good. Just under 5,500 miles. Let me shut the door here. Just shutting that door. Such a solid thud when you close it. It just feels extremely well built. So just under 5,500 miles. Everything in here feels great. And that commanding view of the road, like I alluded to, really is a big deal. I'm in here. These windows are huge, right? Obviously tinted, that helps. Not feeling like you're totally in a fishbowl in a bad way, but it feels like it in a good way. There's nothing that you're not going to be able to see as you're driving down the road, and I absolutely love that. One other thing I'll show you for fun. I'll turn that off. It truly is kind of adding to the timeless bit is everything you need and nothing more, right? And you really grow to appreciate that. If it was filled with tech and gizmos, creature comforts, and everything was overdone, that would not age well. But the fact that Toyota was very purposeful with what they put in here without overdoing it and overcooking it, it is going to age extremely well. Like one thing, it does have all 4-door keyless entry. So you just push that button there, windows mirrors fold in, or with your key in your pocket, it unlocks it. So it has it on all 4 doors. That's kind of a neat thing that gets overlooked often, but it is very handy. But a ton of space back here, a lot more headroom by comparison to the 4Runner. I'll show you that for fun. A lot of people are like, well, just get a 4Runner. It's the same thing. They are very different vehicles, and there really was a pretty big price gap between them for good reason. So your entry point for your headroom, much worse by comparison in the 4Runner. And don't get me wrong, I love the 4Runner for a number of reasons, a lot of the same reasons that I love the Land Cruiser here. But just a very comfortable, nice place to be. The Land Cruiser is timeless. And the fifth and final thing that I absolutely love about my Land Cruiser Heritage Edition here is the fact that it feels special. It feels unique. And what I mean by that is, compared to the 4Runner over there, that is massively overproduced, You know, it's produced for a huge market. A lot more people are buying into that, given the price point, really, right? Yeah, I bought that. You can buy that for $56,000, brand new, back in the day, back in 2024 anyway. We all know there's a 6th generation 4Runner out, blah, blah, blah. 56 grand, then 91,000. So that is a big jump in price tag between the two. They would produce anywhere, I think it's about 115 to 130,000 of these each year on average. Whereas here, believe it or not, they only produce about 3,500 to 6,500 of these per year on average. Sometimes it goes up from there a little bit down, but that's kind of where the sweet spot was. And like I alluded to earlier, not a lot of people really understood the appeal of the Land Cruiser here. It really is a vehicle, it isn't until you drive it that you understand it. It really is a vehicle where if you know, you know. And I hate to say it like that, but it truly is that case with this one here. Now, the Heritage Edition in particular was limited to only 1,200 units for both 2020 and 1,200 units in 2021. So 2,400 total of the Heritage Edition, right? In 2020, like I mentioned earlier, only had the 2-row, had the 3rd row delete. So the fact that this one has this 3rd row right behind me is pretty awesome and pretty special to me, adding to the specialness, really. In 2020, for those of you who don't know, they only had 2 color options, black and white. And then 2021 added a couple more. They added in silver, iconic silver, as well as magnetic gray metallic to the mix. Obviously this one here, the Blizzard Pearl White. Get into my few dislikes. There truly are just a few, and they're so small, right? They're not even worth mentioning on this video, for being honest with each other, but I want to try to be critical here. These are things that someone could potentially not like about the Land Cruiser. So let's get into it. All right, first thing is fuel economy. Let's just get that out of the way. You get about 13 to 14 miles to the gallon with a 5.7 liter V8. We all know that. If you've had a Tundra before, that's your fuel economy. And that is no kidding what you get on a good day. 13, 14 miles to the gallon, okay? That's maybe with the tailwind, if we're being honest with each other. So that is an obvious thing to maybe dislike about it. To me, I would trade the reliability of this any day of the week for that poor fuel economy, because I know that this will always work, this will always run for me, and I will never have to leave it in the shop for any kind of repair. Second thing that I could potentially dislike, and I remember not liking this when I got my first one of these in 2020, that is these Grandtrek Dunlop tires, these AT23s. They're pretty weak looking. They're like a highway tire. It's just not fitting for the iconic Land Cruiser. I would have hoped for a little bit more aggressive tires than those. Even the 4Runner over here, the 4Runner, get something a little bit more appropriate for what the 4Runner is. You get some Nitto Terra Grappler tires that are just a little bit more off-road oriented, and I would have hoped to have gotten the same on the Land Cruiser. So again, another small gripe, easy thing to fix. The third thing that I don't love about it is the fact that you get so much factory rake up front. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, that's just how much the front end kind of dips down comparatively to the back end. The back end, I don't know, it just sits up higher than that front end. So a noticeable amount of rake. And to be fair, I actually am on a little bit of a decline here on my driveway. I want to be fair, but that is something that you will notice when you get behind the wheel. It's just a little bit of a rake, and you do get some dip and dive when you're hitting the brakes. Nothing that you wouldn't really expect for an SUV of this size. My fourth dislike of the Land Cruiser Heritage Edition, again, it really is something that you just get used to so quickly, but if you jump from that 4Runner and then jump right into the Land Cruiser here, you will quickly realize just how heavy the steering feel is in the Land Cruiser. And I can see that bothering some people. It takes some getting used to. It definitely takes some muscle to be driving this around regularly and daily driving it. So the heft of the steering, the weight of the steering, is something that maybe not everybody would love. Now for my fifth and final dislike. This is truly the only dislike, real, genuine dislike that I have about this thing. And hear me out. I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. I understand. After you hear this, you're going to be like, what? What do you mean? You just kind of hyped it up. The thing I don't love about it is, if you're going to try to find yourself a low-mile example, 2020 or 2021 Land Cruiser Heritage Edition, get ready to pay an arm and a leg for it. They cost so much money. Their price tags have shot to the moon. You guys know I quote-unquote lucked out by spending $95,400 for this particular one. $101,000 some change after tax, of course. At $101,000, I felt like I won the jackpot. I won the lottery. And that's a really silly thing to say out loud, because I still spent 6 figures on a 5-year-old Toyota at the end of the day. And that's pretty silly. I mean, that's not lost on me. I want to say that out loud. So I hate the fact that you have to spend such a premium to get into a nice example now. If you're going to get into a Land Cruiser Heritage Edition, you got to be shooting for one with like 40 or 50,000 miles on it. And why I say that is because if you start driving this particular one here, I have less than 5,500 miles on it. There was, I think think 4,300 miles and some change when I bought it, right? If I start driving this every day, the value that I will lose on this will be pretty astronomical, right? If I put 15, 20,000 miles on this, well, I just lost potentially maybe $25,000, $30,000 in value if I were to resell it, right? So that's kind of the thing that kind of pulls on your heart a little bit as you're driving it. You love it and you want to drive it every day. You can drive it forever. No other vehicle you can drive this long and have peace of mind in, but at the same time, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to resale. In order for you to pay a reasonable figure for one of these, you need to buy one with a lot of miles on it, unfortunately. And it's a shame, right? You're spending dang near its original MSRP. If you're going to pay high 80s for one, you're going to get one with 40, 50, 60,000 miles on it. And that's kind of silly, right? You're spending its original price point, brand new MSRP, for one that's very old at this point, half a decade old, and plenty of miles. So that doesn't sit well with me either, but it truly is a brute of a vehicle, and you can still buy one with great peace of mind, knowing that it's going to last several 100,000 miles more after you buy it. But to say, it really is a catch-22, right? I love the fact that they sustain great resale value, but at the same time, that's also the thing that I hate. If you're going to try to buy into one and get into one now, unless you bought one brand new back in 2020 or 2021 and held on to it, you're going to be paying a premium. So catch-22, I love it, the resale, but at the same time, also hate it because you're buying into it. I'll wrap up the video there. Hopefully some of you guys appreciate this type of content, this ownership content on the Land Cruiser Heritage Edition. There's not a whole lot of YouTubers out there showcasing and highlighting this vehicle. And to me, I feel like that's a shame. It truly is such a special, iconic vehicle that deserves a lot more attention. So that's why I do videos on it, even though I know many of these videos don't get a ton of views. I do it because, well, I too want to be able to look back at these videos in future years, as I actually do in my old videos of Land Cruisers. I love watching them. So hopefully some of you appreciate that. If you do, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Your support means a ton, and I promise you it doesn't go unnoticed. Till next time.